Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Get down! Baltimore!
What are they getting?
Everything out of me. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. My name is Spencer Schultz. Spenny Powers, your boy. I'm going solo today. I had a little arrangement last night. Couldn't end up making it for the preview episode Jake did with Chris Trapasso. Definitely should check that one out as well. But we are here. It is Friday. It is football weather, ladies and germs. It is absolutely time. As I put my mic into better quality, as I just got a new laptop, I look a little clearer. I sound a little better. I feel good. I was sick for a little bit. My throat's been bothering me. It is gone. It is football weather. It is cold out. It is brisk. It is cloudy. It is gray. There's going to be a storm. Man, oh man, October's almost here. Spooktober, spooky fest time as the Baltimore Bills, the Buffalo Bills travel to Baltimore to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Two 2-1 teams, two very quarterback-dependent teams. Wanted to ultimately get into the hardy-har of that game, that matchup. First, I ended up wanting to go through a little more fan aspect thing. I have gotten a lot of requests this year. I'm going to consider myself the concierge of Baltimore. I'm a full-time resident again. This is my second stint in the city. And a bunch of people asking, hey, you know, Bills Mafia obviously travels well. Where should my friends go? I went on Cover One. You should go check out Cover One's work for more in-depth Bills coverage. They do a great job over there. Anthony had me on his show, Disguise Coverage, Cover One. Great guys, great independent work. Fantastic. They built a really cool brand for themselves. But hey, where should we go in Baltimore? People hear all the awful things about Baltimore. We've seen The Wire, blah, 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 blah. Baltimore's a great city. Not just because I'm from here. I, to be honest, never wanted to live here. After I got out of college, that wasn't what I imagined for myself. I had family that lived in Los Angeles, always wanted to head to LA, always wanted to consider, hey, maybe Denver, maybe Florida, places that always intrigued me. At this point, I traveled all three of those places relatively frequently, and I'm happy. I'm happy to be in Baltimore. So I'm going to put upon myself to be the concierge of Baltimore, particularly for Baltimore Ravens games. And wanted to give recommendations. A lot of listeners, the majority of our listeners are not in Maryland. When I run our reports for our podcast, I end up seeing we have 850 unique downloads a month from Britain, from the UK, from Brazil. There's like 60 people in Germany, people all over the country, people in Canada. I think we have like 1,100 unique downloads a month up in the Great White North. Our buddies up there. Obviously, my good friend Cole, he's going to be coming down December 4th. And I guess before I get into Baltimore takes a little bit, I guess we can say that Cole is going to be coming down, and we're going to do a big joint tailgate on the December 4th game when the Denver Broncos country, let's ride, travel to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. That's going to be a fun time. Usually Baltimore in December, early December is not terribly cold. It's football weather as well, so anytime between here and there, it should be a little musky, a little musty, gray. Who knows? Could be a nice day. Sweatshirt weather, T-shirt weather, coat weather, parka weather. Who knows what we get in this weird little climate that we have. But wanted to kind of shout out, I guess, if people are coming, listeners are coming abroad, or maybe you're someone that's from an hour and a half from outside of Maryland, or outside of Baltimore. You don't travel to Baltimore a ton. Wanted to give you my weekend in Baltimore kind of itinerary. I've lived here only a couple months again, just moved back, but I did a stint here post-college. I went to Towson University, go Tigers, and I did a stint at Towson. Obviously, took a couple victory laps there, so I was always in Baltimore. Towson borders Baltimore literally, and then friends always down here. There's a fun bar scene down here, all kinds of stuff, especially for younger people, you know, the college age and fresh post-grad. So I wanted to go through, you know, my kind of thoughts. There's a big Twitter thread I pinned to my profile, kind of blew up. So figured, hey, maybe that's something that would be of value to our listeners. So my immediate thoughts are, number one, I live in South Baltimore, technically. People call it Federal Hill. It's technically Sobo, South Baltimore, and past the hill, past the marker of Locust Point. So my recommendations immediately near the stadium, there is a historic place called Cross Street Market, and it is a literal open air market, which has a bunch of shops. You can go buy seafood to take home and cook there if you want. It's an actual market. It used to be a little bit more in that sense. There's a butcher, things of that nature. So that is in the epicenter of the closest fun part of Baltimore relative to the stadium. The stadium borders what's called Otterbein, and then right through Otterbein, just like a block or two, is Federal Hill and the Federal Hill bars. Mother's Purple Patio is probably the first place that I should say. If you want to tailgate at a bar, then you go to Mother's. Mother's has a big, big outdoor concrete painted like a football field and a Ravens football field outdoor patio, the Purple Patio it's called, and Crush is there, all kinds of stuff. It's a younger crowd. Fed Hill is a bunch of younger bars, louder. Post-grad is mainly the scene there, but you get people from all walks of life in Fed Hill, people from all walks of life all over Baltimore, especially by the water. So would shout out Cross Street Market. Immediately next to Cross Street Market, I would say that the kind of bar scene there, there's a place called One Star Country Club where it is sticky. It is literally being satirical. Hey, we are a shitty country club in Baltimore. They have really good food, actually. They have smash burgers during the day, happy hour prices, super cheap, really good smash burgers. I like to go to there during the day with like a buddy or two. At night, it gets absolutely jam-packed. You can go shotgun a twisted tea there. That is a tradition. Going to One Star and shotgunning a tall boy twisted tea is a rite of passage. Wayward, another bar right there, kind of like a southern, southwestern Texas vibe. They've got the Longhorn skull on the wall, things like that. I was never a huge fan of that when I was like immediately post-grad. I can never hear what anyone's saying. I'm a little bit hard at hearing, but a lot of people enjoy it there. The Charles is super loud, house, techie, blaring. They have like 50 gigantic screens, but it is very much so, I would say, more of like a place that you want to go to like hit on people, if you're 24 years old. I like it there. Music, I like electronic music, and that's what they mainly play there. I mentioned Mother's. McGurk's is another one, Irish pub type deal. Can get pretty rowdy in there, but also has great cheesesteaks, great, greasy food. I don't go there a ton, but I have friends that frequent there. Definitely Bandito is another one that I have been to a ton. Sticky floors, really good Mexican food, tacos, things like that. So Fed Hill also, like I said, borders South Baltimore and Locust Point. Like I said, my two personal favorite places, they're about a 20-minute walk from the stadium, are Don't Know Tavern and Delia Foley's. Those are both right around the corner from me. Don't Know has live music all the time. Most nights they have live music. They've got, my one friend always jokes and says that they have cold food and warm beer, but I don't find that to be the case. I go there all the time. It's cheap. It's nice. It has a very fun. It has a lot of character. It's all murals in there. They have a mural of The Wire. They have a mural of John Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh for the Harbaugh Super Bowl. They've got some little shuffleboard on the side. It can be as busy or as quiet as possible at any time, at literally any time. It's very random how busy it gets. And Delia Foley's is an Irish pub. It is a Guinness bar. The Guinness Brewery, the only one in the United States, is about 20 minutes from Baltimore. I'm really just rapping here on all of Baltimore stuff. Mark really wants me to shout out Ekibon, which I think is like right on Eastern Avenue in Fells. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Mark, in the comments. Great ramen, great takeout food, Mark says too. So I'll shout out Ekibon for you. There you go, Mark. But like I was saying, Delia Foley's, Guinness Bar, the Guinness Brewery is near the airport, which is Halethorpe-ish, and it is about a 20-minute Uber. It's the only one in the U.S. I've actually never been. People say it's like a nice time, not something really crazy to do. But my big recommendation, so we talked through Fed Hill a little bit. There's a lot more to Fed Hill. There's way more places. There's Sobo Cafe, which is like a decently nice place. There's everywhere you go, there's a bar in Fed Hill, especially towards the stadium. Then there's Locust Point, which continues to wrap around the water. Is on the other side of Light Street, which runs all the way through Baltimore. And Locust Point is more, I would say, mid-30s vibes, neighborhood vibes, on the water. People who are homeowners live there. Fed Hill too, but Locust Point is a lot of homeowners, a little bit less apartments maybe. You don't quote me on that. Anyway, there's really good places. Shoddy's Point, Wiley Gunter's, Copper Shark. There's all kinds of really good restaurants there. You can drive through that to go to Fort McHenry if you're here for the weekend, want something cool to do, maybe with the kids, with the family. There's also the Baltimore Museum of Industry, which is another great activity for the family. I like it myself. I went there on field trips when I was young. Very cool place. Continuing to wrap on through, I want to mention Watershed in Fed Hill. It is on top of the Cross Street Market, which I brought up. That's a cool place. It's pretty new. I think maybe 3 years old, something like that. Not super cheap, not super expensive. Definitely people from all walks of life are in there at any given point. Then I wanted to talk about, especially Locust Point has tons of other great places. There's Diamondback Brewing Company has the brewery there, a little micro brewery. I think this is a full brewery. That's really cool. Locust Point, definitely check it out. There's a ton. Barfly is there, a ton of great stuff. I really love Fells Point. So if you're at the stadium, then you go to Fed Hill. Fed Hill backs up into a literal federal hill that is on the water. Then the Inner Harbor wraps around. I hate the Inner Harbor. It is the biggest disappointment in all of Baltimore. It sucks. There's nothing cool there. It's a lot of franchises. There's some cool stuff. The aquarium is there. That's incredible. There's a Miss Shirley's there, which is a super expensive, like over-the-top brunch place, but is worth going to once for sure. Delicious food, great vibes, classic Bloody Mary with the pick of destiny of all kinds of shrimp and crab and all that stuff. Continuing to wrap around the water past the aquarium, which you should absolutely go to. It is badass. One of the top aquariums in the world, at least in the U.S. I don't know about the world. We'll say the world. We'll say the galaxy, actually. So continue. You wrap around. That takes you to Little Italy, which is pretty close to Johns Hopkins. I would say, and maybe I get in trouble for this, but the closer you get to Hopkins, you should avoid. I will say that. Little Italy is not necessarily that. Little Italy does back up into Hopkins eventually, kind of. The best way to put it, Orleans Street kind of runs through there where Hopkins is. But Little Italy, Amici's is my favorite. It is like out of a 1988, like the movie Moonstruck. I think they actually have a poster of the movie Moonstruck in there. It's cheap. It's like, I don't want to overhype the food, but they do have one thing there called penne rotunda. I don't even know if it's on the menu anymore, but my family's been eating it my whole life. It is a mound of a bread bowl that is overflowed with this delicious cheesy scampi sauce and then a bunch of shrimp on top of it. It's like a ridiculously cheesy scampi sauce. Love that. Tons of, there's a bunch of good stuff in Little Italy. That continues into the most gentrified part of Baltimore. I don't say that positively. I don't say that negatively. It is what it is. If you want to argue with me on Twitter about it, fine. It is gentrified. It is new. They removed the culture. It is owned by a group called Atlas, which is gentrifying everywhere in Baltimore. Some people hate it. Some people love it. I have no stance. Whatever. If you want to be mad, that's fine. That is the most expensive area around the water. That is mainly, you can go all the way down. People can, whatever. Harbor East is Azumi, which I actually used to work at in college, which is an upscale Japanese fusion hybrid kind of restaurant. I don't think it's as good as it used to be. So fine. Maximon is an upscale Mexican restaurant, Spanish, Latina food. Pardon me. I'm sorry if I offend someone. And then there is Lock Bar there, which is cool. Uzu Bay, which is cool. Those are more expensive. They are overpriced, but they are nice. It is good food. There's a couple other cool things. I love the Harbor East Deli. That is where I order food from all the time. Pizza, subs, French fries, everything. The best DoorDash in the world. Anything will be at your place. Wherever you are, any time of day, 25 minutes, they will bring you anything you want that is greasy. They even have fine salads, which I actually order a lot from there. There's tons of other places. So then you continue past Harbor East. That connects into Fells Point, which is my favorite part of Baltimore personally. Fells Point is historic. It has cobblestone roads. There's tons of shops, hipster stuff, quaint little things ultimately. And Fells Point goes about a mile square, a little bit more. And it is the highest. I think it's actually not even per capita. I think it is just the highest amount of bars in a single square mile in the country. Even more than Milwaukee, which I think is the highest city total. So Fells Point has a bunch of really cool places. I like Admiral's Cup. That actually is a Bills bar. The Ravens are playing the Bills. I promise I'll get to the Bills soon. But you can skip all of this. I'll put a marker somewhere in the podcast episode to skip through all this stuff. There is Admiral's Cup, which is a 3-level venue that has a really grimy bar on the bottom and a really nice nautical bar on top. They have live music in the bottom bar 7 days a week. They do some private events at points there. I really love Thames Street Oyster House. I think that's some of the best seafood in the city. You have to get a reservation to go there. That is delicious. It is not just Maryland seafood and crab. They have like Jonas crab claws from New Hampshire, all kinds of really delicious things. They do like this seafood tower thing that is actually worth the money and delicious. Pretty nice place, pretty small place. There's Cat's Eye Pub. There's Max's. There is Riptides, tons of bars there. Go there. You're going to have a great time. There's Bond Street, which is a little bit more upscale than some of the other places. There's also Bar Cocina. There's a little bit more upscale. If you think of like where the local influencer that grew up at your high school went and moved to Baltimore, they're probably at Bar Cocina a lot of the time. Then continuing on, I suppose, what else is there? I think I mentioned Wiley Gunter's and Shoddy's in Locust Point. Like I said, Nick's Fish House is in its own entity. It is in a place that is developing in Baltimore, down by the water, that in a place that hasn't been developed. Kevin Plank, the owner of Baltimore, has bought a big mass of land and is building up a bunch of stuff over there. But Nick's Fish House is awesome. They have great seafood. It's on the water. It's not expensive. It's not super cheap, but it's relatively cheap for being in the city and being on the water. I really love it there. Bo Brooks is a place that's a little further that I'd like to shout out. I mentioned Miss Shirley. My good friend, Tyler Delarada, shout out to Tyler, owns a coffee shop in Federal Hill that is called Morning Mugs, and it won Best Coffee in Baltimore. It is right next to the stadium. If you want a coffee before a Ravens game, there you go. What else do we have here? Di Pasquale's is probably the best deli sandwiches in the city. Di Pasquale's is fantastic. There's a place near Hopkins University, not the hospital, called Paper Moon Diner that is like a really creepy, awesome, cool place if you're a little bit of a sicko like me. El Buffalo in Canton, which is a little further. You don't have to go to Canton. Canton is fantastic, more neighborhoody. It's far from the stadium relatively, though. Bird in Fed Hill is chicken sandwiches, BRD. That's really good. I mentioned a bunch of other stuff. Steakhouse-wise, there's a Fogo de Chão, which is all-you-can-eat Brazilian. There's a Sullivan's, there's a Ruth's Chris, there's a couple other things. My favorite is the Prime Rib, which is located in an area called Mount Vernon. You can get a $100 steak there and feel like, wow, I'm glad I got that $100 steak. There is the Hippodrome and the Lyric to see comedians or musicians or shows, things like that. There's also the Pier 6 Pavilion, which is a amphitheater that overlooks kind of the Harbor East, Inner Harbor area. It's getting a little cold for concert season, so I don't know that that's super relevant. But like I mentioned, the aquarium's fantastic, Mother's Game Day, all of that good stuff. So there's a cool, 10 minutes on everything Baltimore that I know. There's much more. It's a lot of fun stuff. Baltimore is not some super unsafe place. It is another city. I've seen things happen. People have been robbed, all of those kinds of things, but it is the same as any other major city. There are some bad areas, and none of the ones that I told you are where it is the worst. I'm not going to comment too much on all of that, but it's like any other city, man. There's bad parts, there's good parts, there's great parts, there's average parts. So that is my whole rant on Baltimore, places to eat, all of that stuff. If you go to the game and you want to tailgate at the stadium, if you want to do the super touristy kids type thing, there's Ravens Walk, which leads up right to the front statues of Johnny Unitas and Ray Lewis at the front of the stadium. You can get your face painted, and there's bars there, and there's all kinds of stuff. Pickles Pub is on the other side of Camden Yards, which backs up into Pickles Pub backs up into Camden Yards, which backs up into M&T. Pickles Pub is more for Orioles games. People go there on game day. There's also a place called Sliders next to it. They do have awesome crushes. The other side is Pigtown. Parking-wise, you can park at the Horseshoe Casino, which is right next to the stadium. There's actually a Topgolf that is between the Horseshoe and the stadium, immediately next to the stadium, that will be I've watched it be built over the last couple months and should be, I think, opening in the next couple weeks here. Looks great there. Parking-wise, you can park at the Horseshoe Casino. You can park at a place called Second Chance that is right across the street from the Horseshoe Casino, which is a really cool place you can also visit. I'm not sure if they're open on Sundays. I think they might be. But it is a Goodwill type refurbished place where they had the Coalfield House, Maryland letters of the hardwood court from Coalfield House at University of Maryland there for $50,000 per side. You could buy there. You can buy doorknobs there, couches, all kinds. You can buy 18th century marble fireplaces there, all the way through, piece of crap stuff. So that's a cool place. You can park there. I used to park at First Mariner Arena Bank for quite some time. I think it's Royal Farms Arena now, but it's still First Mariner Parking Garage. I don't know. It's weird, but basically anywhere right there is fine. You can park by Camden Yards. You can park anywhere. If you want free parking, get there before 9 a.m. and you can go to the area called Pigtown right next to the stadium and park there. At the tailgating lots, mixed bag all over. G&H lot are very fun. Those are kind of the bottom under a bridge. There's a place called Hammerjacks that was a longtime Baltimore staple that is reopened, and Hammerjacks that has like an open area. They have like live music there as a tailgate. You can't bring any beer or food in or anything. They do have food. They do have booze. It's not cheap. It's not crazy expensive, but it's not cheap. That's a fine little thing if you kind of just want to not think about anything. I'm going to go to Hammer Jacks, walk in there, see what's up with a couple friends, see if I meet some random people. So the tailgates themselves, there's all kinds of ones that are old. There's all kinds of ones that are new in the actual tailgating lots, but I guess that's my 20-minute diatribe on the city of Baltimore and what people should do from out of town on game day. I'm sure people have their own thoughts and opinions. I am not entitled to my own any more than anyone else. I've just lived here for a while, and not a terribly long time, but like I said, I went to Towson. I lived here for a couple years post-grad, moved away, I'm back, and that's my thoughts. I'm 29 years old, and I've kind of gone through the post-grad experience. I've dipped my toes into the 30-year-olds experience, and I like both, so that's my list of fun things you can do, good places to eat, and go get drinks in Baltimore. Fells Point's awesome. Fed Hill's cool. Locust Point is very chill. And Harbor East is like bougie, but also not. There you go. Now, let's talk some Buffalo Bills at Baltimore Ravens. As I'm going through and watching the Bills, the thing that stands out to me, and hey, maybe they play the Ravens a little bit different, but defensively for the Bills, they really like to sit in split safety looks. Leslie Frazier has been doing this for a while. The Bills use an abnormal rate of nickel always. Teron Johnson, their nickel. They love him. He's the one who picked Lamar Jackson off in the 2021 playoff game in January of 2021 and took a 101-yard pick six and flipped the game, and then Lamar gets knocked out. He's a good player. Micah Hyde, one of their dynamic duo safeties, is out for the year. Jordan Poyer, their other dynamic duo safety, has been practicing. I would guess he plays. I think he's questionable. The Bills have 10 injuries on the injury report. Huge loss for them is Jordan Phillips, who is a dynamic one-tech, three-tech type player, super athletic, super explosive, heavy-handed guy that has made a ton of plays, was awesome in the Bills' first game against the Los Angeles Rams and absolutely throttled them in many ways. So that's a big loss. The Bills also star Matt Milano. He is an incredible linebacker. He is like a slightly less athletic version of a Luke Kuechly kind of guy. He's not quite calling plays out. I would say he's 79% of Luke Kuechly. He's a very good player. He's the one that Lamar shook in that viral GIF that people are still sharing with last time they played in the regular season. Matt Milano is a good player. Next to him is Tremaine Edmonds, who is very similar to Patrick Queen to me, just bigger and longer. Can kind of get in his own head and play too much in the motion of things at times, but a dynamic athlete, can go run, can go hit, can go make plays, and has a lot of length as opposed to Patrick Queen. So in the middle there, tough. Obviously up front for the Bills, they've got Von Miller, Greg Russo, Boogie Basham, AJ Epinesa. They are loaded to the gills when it comes to edge rushers, generating pressure. They have Ed Oliver inside, a super dynamic athlete, very similar to Justin Matabike, I would say, in terms of the skill set that they possess. And that's they have Tim Settle as well, who used to play for the Commanders, aka the football team. Their corners, Kaiir Elam, the first-round rookie. They also have Dane Jackson, who I believe is questionable. They also have Christian Benford, who I think is out for this game. So the Bills' secondary is very thin. Leslie Frazier, their defensive coordinator, is super, super, super well-rounded in terms of getting his guys prepared. They do play a pretty consistent style of split safety, man two, man one, rolling down, post-snap, cover four, cover six, a lot of those kinds of things. They love to sit in those split safety looks, and they are very vulnerable in the exact places that most split safety looks are. They are vulnerable in the flats, and they are vulnerable over the middle of the field. The issue is that they do have two tall, athletic, quick linebackers, especially Matt Milano, who is one of the best coverage players in the NFL. I'm pretty sure PFF has him graded as like a top 10 coverage player in the NFL. Obviously, we do like some PFF. We only take them as far as we can throw them, but he is legit, man. He makes the correct reads. He understands what is the worst case of this play and how to not let that happen. The Dolphins last week had a lot of success in the flats. I think this is a game where the Ravens need to use Isaiah Likely on some play action and some option looks, using him as a split blocker a little bit, and then also flipping him the ball in the flats. They're very vulnerable in the flats. They don't have Trey White, who is a dynamic cornerback that can come up and hit. Kaiir Elam is, still proving his salt. I think he can go wrap up a little bit, but he's not, Trey White is kind of similar to Marlon Humphrey. He'll come knock your teeth out and bite your ankles and run you over and, force a fumble, things of that nature. They don't have him. So the Ravens definitely need to attack the flats in this game. Of course, they're going to want to take away Mark Andrews defensively. The Bills will. So Isaiah Likely, I think, is a huge factor in this one. I'm not impressed with the Bills' run defense in any way, shape, or form. Like Garnett said, Rhodes is also out too. They signed Xavier Rhodes, who would have to get up to speed. The Ravens saw him against Indianapolis last year, and he's not going to play as well. So their secondary is thin. Poyer is a great player. They've got guys that can make some plays on the back end. They also, who have they been trotting out safety? Saran Neal, they've also been trotting out at safety. I think he's played 13 snaps defensively. They have DeMar Hamlin, who's played 56 snaps defensively. They have Jaquan Johnson out of Indiana. He's played 65 snaps, so he's taken kind of the lion's share of those safety looks, and he has been struggle busing to go tackle. I think he has as many missed tackles as tackles, according to Sports Info Solutions. So he is not, someone that has played terribly well to this point. And my concern, if I'm the Bills, when you're watching the Dolphins and what Mike McDaniel chose to do, started with some zone looks, wanted to kind of test the linebackers and things of that nature. When the Dolphins started running gap, it was a mess. They have a dynamic athletic front, Greg Russo, Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, Boogie Basham, all these guys, but they don't have a hog in the A-gap that can just be a Michael Pierce or a DJ Reader, and theirs is Jordan Phillips, and he's also out. All three of those players out. So they don't have that. The linebackers, Edmonds is a kid in a candy store for motion. If you motion Devin Duvernay, the Dolphins were motioning Tyreek Hill and Waddle, he will run away from the play. Maybe that's what they want him to do. It didn't look like that was so, but he will bite on motion. You can make his eyes tell him lies very easily. Matt Milano, you can't. But Matt Milano is a little bit more of a star at times. Taron Johnson is, but Matt Milano, they also ask to walk out into the slot and go rush from the outside and go mug over the B gap, things of that nature. If you see an opportunity, if you're Lamar Jackson, and this is what I think a key for the Ravens would be, is if you see that situation, Matt Milano is not sitting, playing normal core linebacker, run the ball up the middle, anything. Run it downhill with zone concepts, use power, whatever. They are undisciplined. They have young players, inexperienced players. You can go attack Edmonds. He bites on a lot. He is a dynamic athlete. He does get it right sometimes, but you can run the ball right at him with a little motion. He'll start moving laterally pre-snap, and you can get it back up there. I think this is going to be I don't know what the workload for J.K. Dobbins is going to be. Him and Justice Hill should have a field day. The rain, I don't know. The forecast is fluctuating. We'll see what it ends up being. It's probably going to be crappy out. Heavy mist to a light rain, maybe a little bit of heavy rain. I've seen all of it. When I look at the forecast, I don't know. But run the ball downhill on them. That plays to your advantage. So if I'm the Bills, I don't know. I might not have Poyer. I don't have Hyde. I have inexperienced corners and safeties, maybe aside from Poyer. Fitting the run from split safety is not fun. It's not a fun thing, especially to ask inexperienced guys to do. It requires a lot of discipline. It requires a lot of communication, and I don't expect that to be a heavy ask. Are the Bills going to move out of too high and move out of nickel? They refuse to usually. I don't think Leslie Frazier is going to move out of it. I don't know how they can stop the Ravens' run game. Stephen Ruiz of The Ringer shares an article saying that basically the Ravens' under center run game is garbage because they have run 13 rushes with running backs from under center, and they've only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. When you dive deeper into that, about 6 of those were on 3rd or 4th and short situations. So I'm not sure that you're going to be averaging 5 yards a carry a lot of those. There's a small sample size in that situation. So this is the opportunity to run Justice Hill and run J.K. Dobbins between the tackles and attack, run at Von Miller, run at Greg Russo, run at those guys early, flip the ball into the flats a little bit, open things up, get those safeties thinking, use a couple play actions, isolate those guys. We'll see what happens for the Ravens offense. We have a question here in the chat. How do you feel about Stanley? I drank a lot of coffee you can probably tell that. I'm doing a solo episode. We're going on a half hour here. I'm very caffeinated. I went on a little Twitter rant and said, if I'm the Ravens and you want to start playing some games, to me, fan perspective, it sounds like Ronnie Stanley got it all off his chest in the locker room on Thursday. People don't know what I've been through. I wish the fans understood. The team knows, everybody here knows, but the fans don't. He sounded pissed off about the perception of who he is and things of that nature. A guy that's always been, the guru, quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes for the listeners. A guy who's always prided himself on kind of his mental acuity. And it feels like he had a really, really, really tough time with this injury. I would expect that he did. And he can ultimately cry with his $100 million wiping his tears. But clearly he's pissed and feels disrespected and slighted. If I'm the Ravens and I want to have a little fun in a rain game with the mighty Bills coming to town who are beat to crap and just came off of an exhausting game offensively as well, where Josh Allen dropped back over 70 times and was like about to pass out on Tua, and Savannah Diggs says he's absolutely cramping at the end of a game. If I'm the Ravens and I'm going to play Ronnie Stanley, the media portion of Friday's practice, Ronnie Stanley doesn't attend. And this is my conspiracy theory. I might be screaming into the clouds, but the media portion is open. They're doing walkthroughs. Ronnie Stanley probably doesn't need a walkthrough as much as a first-year player does. Would it be nice to have him do a walkthrough? Yes. Does it help? Yes. Walkthroughs are invaluable, or extremely valuable, I should say. But maybe you can start messing around a little bit. Maybe you can start saying, "Oh, well, we won't have him open for the. He'll be, resting, getting treatment, rehabbing a little bit, whatever you want to call it, with the trainer inside during the media portion. Then what is the media going to do? Ronnie Stanley's not here. Then they list him as questionable. I don't know that he's had enough full practices to go play in a game. I would think, if I had to best guess, that they would want another week of him being a full participant. But if you're going to play him this Sunday, maybe you start messing with the Bills a little. I don't know. Is he going to play? He was a full participant. And maybe it's the exact opposite. But, oh, no, we're not going to play him. He was out of practice. He missed the walkthrough. And then if I'm the Bills, and I have Von Miller and then this group of young edges that are looking pretty damn good, I'm thinking, and Von Miller traditionally has played left outside linebacker, which means over the right tackle in his career. Majority of his snaps, I think somewhere around 70% of his snaps. This year, he's actually played slightly more on the right side over the left tackle. So if I'm the Bills and I know, okay, if they're going to trot that rookie out there, then they're probably going to be putting a tight end over there, that Pat Ricard guy they're going to stick in the game a bunch. They're going to run the split blockers where they run play action and then have a tight end come across the back end of the formation and try and do all of those kinds of things. I would put Von Miller over Morgan Moses and see if I could get some one-on-ones with Morgan Moses. Von Miller can beat the crap out of Morgan Moses one-on-one. Then I can take my younger developing guys that are still looking really good. Rousseau does look really damn good. And go stick him over Faalele. Who do you double? What do you do? How do you respond to that? Does that mess with the Ravens? Then the 15D chess that I'm thinking of is, well, what if they do activate Ronnie Stanley? And in my opinion, Ronnie Stanley's not going to be active and not play. He's either playing or he's not. He's either starting or he's not. I would be pretty surprised to see him not start but be active. David Sharp, the other tackle. So fine player. If you talk to any kind of film kind of person that covers the Ravens, they usually like David Sharp. Yeah, they're happy the Ravens kept that guy. So then, all right, well, what if Ronnie Stanley comes into the game? And then and from all intents and purposes, it sounds like Stanley looks great. He thinks he can play at a better level than he did before. He's in the best shape of his life. What do people say when someone comes back from an injury? Maybe that's coach speak and Ronnie speak and whatever, but maybe it's not. He does look like he's in good shape. But if Stanley comes in, then you're in a different spot, and the Bills have kind of gone through these alternative plans and maybe don't know exactly what they're going to do. So that's kind of the chess that I'm thinking of. If they can run the ball effectively, the Ravens, which I expect them to, I would be a little surprised if they couldn't. You have to make sure the priority should be getting the guard, center guard, Powers, Linderbaum, Zeitler to climb and get to the second level and being able to pull and clear out and get to the second level, put a hat on Matt Milano, trick Tremaine Edmonds with a little bit of window dressing. And I think they're going to run the ball well. I think they're going to be able to flip the ball to the flats to guys like Andrews and Duvernay and likely a lot. Rashad Bateman maybe has a couple big plays. If it's raining hard, I don't know, get him involved in that exact same aspect. Not sure. So interesting all around. offensively, but I think the Ravens should be able to run the ball. If they can, I think they win this game. Flipping over to the other side of the ball, Savannah Diggs, obviously threat number one. The Bills' run game has been atrocious, like horrible. Spencer Brown, their right tackle, missed a ton of time. They have had Deion Dawkins is a good left tackle, banged up. I think he missed 2 practices and then was a limited participant this week, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's questionable. Deion Dawkins a good tackle, but really no one on their team stands out as a kind of mauling run blocker. They have Mitch Morse at center, is, fine, older player. They've had Spencer Brown has been playing full time, has not looked as sharp as I would think. They have Quisenberry, who's played tackle 73 snaps. Roger Saffold, who has been a road grader, does not look like himself. He's coming off of some injury as well. The Ravens can run the ball and the Bills can't run the ball, and I don't think the Bills are going to be able to run the ball with any sort of scheme or, outside of Josh Allen doing quarterback runs and scrambling. That is a very bad scenario for the Bills in Baltimore on a rainy day. Josh Allen probably is a mutter. I don't know. I haven't looked up the stats when he plays in inclement weather. He's got a tough arm and he's a tough dude, so I'm sure he can, move the ball still in the rain. But I don't know. They just really aren't that scary in terms of running the ball, in terms of throwing the ball. Obviously, Josh Allen has done incredible things over the past couple years. Really dynamic runner, has a hose, has Stephon Diggs, James Cook, Devin Singletary. Those guys are somewhat dangerous in the pass game. Even Zach Moss. They've been using their fullback Reggie Gilliam a good bit in the pass game. He's kind of a small, light fullback in the sense of Kyle Juszczyk, but can definitely do some things for you. Isaiah McKenzie, they have a super shifty, undersized slot receiver that can do things. They run a lot of common stuff in the pass game. I mean, they've got the straight drop back game. Josh Allen, I believe, has had 8 turnover-worthy plays so far this year and 8 big-time throws, according to PFF. Has been sacked 7 times through 3 games, so not a ton. He's been pressured on 47 of his 151 dropbacks, so about a third of the time. But he's cool with pressure. He doesn't really care about pressure a terrible amount. He has been blitzed 50 times and has gone for 4 touchdowns and no picks when blitzed. When he hasn't been blitzed, he's thrown 5 touchdowns and 2 picks. Under pressure, according to PFF, he has 6.5 yards per attempt. So he hasn't been playing quite as well under pressure. Play action, the Bills have only run 39 play action passing plays, according to PFF, which is only 25%. That's not nothing, but it's not a high amount. They really like to try to push the ball downfield when they do. His air yards are super high, 8.6 air yards per throw, or average distance of targets per throw with play action. And then that goes down to 6.6 without play action. So they like to use some RPOs. They like to get in there a little bit. Allen has gone 7 of 10 on deep balls, 2 touchdowns. Average throw over 20 yards is 32.4. Those he holds the ball for a little bit, 3.6 time to throw. The majority of his throws have been short, in between 0 and 9 yards, and he has been able to get the ball in 2.2 seconds. They've also thrown the ball behind the line of scrimmage 20 times. So it's a quick pass game, man. And they operate on the threat of Allen's legs and him being able to precision the ball to his receivers, squeeze the ball in some tight windows, throwing guys on some sharp angles, and then run around a little bit and unhurl some balls. This Ravens defense is getting a lot of shit right now. I don't think people are examining the context of what this defense has been and is and has gone through with injuries. And, of course, Mike Macdonald doing some things a little different than Wink Martindale did. There are tweaks. They're playing a little bit more split safety with Clark and Williams. They're rotating a lot between those two from split safety alignments post-snap. They're visioning to the quarterback, playing zone or playing when they're playing zone. They're making sure that their eyes are towards the quarterback and their butt is at the sideline. These turnovers aren't luck. The picks are not luck. If you have eyes to the quarterback, you are much more likely to pick the ball off because you're playing the ball, not the receiver. When you're playing man, you're usually playing trail technique. You're trying to play through the catch point. They have reduced the amount of trail technique they're playing and increased the amount of vision they've had to the quarterback in zone. Plus, Marcus Williams is really fucking good. Outstanding player, has been better than advertised, in my opinion, because I think he's more physical than I realized. And they've been really ratting him into the hole, meaning rotating him, spinning him to the rat, which means rotating him from a split safety look or a single high look where he's deep into the hole in the middle of the field quite a bit. They are not quarterbacks. When I say they are not throwing the ball at him in those situations, they don't like it. He is awesome at picking up on traffic and passing off routes over the middle of the field. I think Marcus Peters looked ready to play last week, a lot more than he did against the Dolphins. I don't think the plan was for him to play a lot against the Dolphins, and he ended up having to because Humphrey goes down and Brandon Stevens can't play, banged up, you're playing rookies, all of those things. So I am going to be a hypocrite, as I usually always am, and say what I hate to say, which I hate when people say, well, if you take away Saquon Barkley's 91-yard touchdown, then he's only averaging 3.8 yards per carry. Or if you take away Lamar Jackson's 2 deep throws, then his quarterback. If you take away the Ravens' fourth quarter against the Dolphins, particularly once Marlon Humphrey goes down, all of their stats and their small sample size of 3 games and the efficiencies look a lot better. They have been figuring it out with guys like Pepe Williams, with guys like Jalen Armour-Davis playing a good bit. Kyle Fuller goes down, Peters wonky, things of that nature. They've let up some chunk plays. I would say they've struggled. So just as the Bills, when you're living in that split safety 2-high world, teams are going to attack the middle of the field on you. They're going to throw it over your linebackers and under your safeties, before your safeties. And they've struggled there a little bit. Have not been able to make any big plays in those situations in the pass game. They've broke on some balls, made some big hits, got some pass deflections. But I think that's where the Bills are going to live, man, is going to trying to fit the ball intermediate if they can, and the weather is permitting a bit. They're going to try to fit the ball on slants and skinny posts and digs and those kinds of concepts where, there's levels, there's mesh, there's Y cross, there's things of that nature. And then making the Ravens go tackle or go make plays. And I think that this secondary with Humphrey healthy and Peters healthy and Marcus Williams in his 4th game leading the NFL in interceptions and Chuck Clark continuing to be a solid player, Kyle Hamilton being put in on 3rd down where the Ravens have been 7th best defensively in the NFL percentage-wise, I believe, is going to continue to get better. The Bills don't have a run game. They have to have a run game. They're going to throw the ball too much in inclement weather. So things like that are going to happen. It feels a lot like when they played the 49ers in 2019, if the weather is really bad. And the 49ers didn't play split safety. They loaded the crap out of the box and fit the run, and they were surfing and crashing and then scraping over top against option runs, things of that nature. So the big aspects for me, can the Bills figure out anything running the football? They're going to make some plays in the pass game. Josh Allen is going to run around and make a couple plays and do what he does athletically and all of those kinds of things. I was wrong about the Dolphins game, and I'm willing to be wrong again. I felt very right about the Dolphins game. I came on this podcast and said, hey, I don't think that Tua and the Dolphins offense have the type of capacity to consistently sustain long drives against the Ravens. And they really didn't do a ton. And then in the 4th quarter, the Ravens completely collapse. And I just feel like from strictly a personnel perspective, when you're looking at this game, Ravens are in a better spot in their secondary. Justin Houston probably not going to play. I think he was listed as doubtful. Jason Pierre-Paul going to get his first snaps. Odafe Owe hasn't been playing great. I think he's made more plays when you go back and watch the tape than people realize. I'm not going to sit up here on a soapbox and say he's been outstanding. He hasn't been some sort of apex predator, dominant pass rusher, anything like that. He's been okay. As a pass rusher, he is playing contain a lot. He is trying to stunt a lot. Some of the similar things that Wink Martindale asked his defenders to do, Mike McDonald asked up front. So don't know that he's really pinned his ears back a ton. Doesn't look like he's played with a ton of power, functional strength. He looks thinner. And I remember him making comments about wanting to be able to drop back into coverage and do some things a little bit more. And ultimately, I don't know. I don't think his physique looks the way that I would have tried to steer him if I were in charge. Then again, I'm just an idiot. So he is at the same time the type of athlete that can spy Josh Allen and be a Josh Allen hunter. I would think that delayed rushes and second rushes and trying to get a Hamilton and a Clark and a Humphrey and an Owe and a Queen rushing him or containing Josh Allen are imperative. I would think that has to be your game plan to some extent, especially if you happen to get the Bills in a negative script, meaning they're trailing and have to throw the ball. You can't let them go run around. The Ravens were pitiful against the Patriots in terms of maintaining their rush lanes and their integrity. Cole and I talked about that in the review of that game a couple days ago, but you can't let Josh Allen run loosey-goosey and go make a bunch of plays with his legs, or they will stay in the game and have every chance to win the game. Stephon Diggs and Marlon Humphrey. I think that is a fun battle. I'm not sure if the Ravens will have him tail him and shadow him and move. They don't play a ton of man, and I don't know that you want to against Josh Allen. So the way the Ravens lose this game is blowing coverages. The way the Ravens lose this game is not picking up on deep routes, deep posts, and deep concepts, and not having any sort of contain on Josh Allen and him having all day, hurting you with his legs and going and flicking the ball downfield. And he'll beat you doing that, and he's going to do it. The Jags did a good job keeping him from doing it. I think that's the only team I can remember that really bottled him up fully and thoroughly for 4 quarters in the last year. Pass rush, Justin Madubuike, Travis Jones, those interior guys need to be aware of him. You can't rush past him. Someone can pressure him, and hey, maybe there is contain, maybe there is second rushes and spies and things of that nature. So maybe you want those guys to go rush aggressively and force him to step up through, but he'll beat you with his legs. So I don't know. I think those are kind of the big games happening on each side of the football. The Ravens have to be able to climb to the second level and seal off Matt Milano and get J.K. Dobbins and Justice Hill and Lamar Jackson into the second and third level and use some quick flat plays. It feels like they're much more confident striking the flats and being able to go make guys pay. They have better guys after the catch than they really ever have. J.K. Dobbins is back. Justice Hill has some explosion to him. Isaiah Likely is a dynamic player with the football in his hands. Mark Andrews, of course. Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay. Maybe we see a taste of James Prochet in this game, who's finally fully healthy for quite some time. Who knows? So I think that's the game offensively. Defensively, I think that containing Josh Allen with spies, limiting his ability to be a street ball player and unfurl the ball on deep concepts. And that's not giving them enough credit for what they can do on the broken play and on the late play and how it can be designed and certain things. But the Bills can't run the football, man. And if Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters and Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton and Chuck Clark and Pepe Williams are all healthy and in this game, Isaiah Mckenzie, I could see giving them some problems a little bit. Stephon Diggs, I don't see Diggs having like 30 yards a catch and making these plays unless they're coverage breakdowns. And I think with Peters and Humphrey and Clark and Williams on the field, ideally for 4 quarters, there's not going to be as many coverage breakdowns. They're talking about veterans. Talking about 3 guys who have been here a long time and another guy that is a top free safety in the league. So I think the Ravens win this game. I think that running the football is imperative for the Ravens in this game. Maybe they're able to stave off the rain a little, and it looks like that Texans game in 2019 offensively. The Bills secondary is going to make mistakes, man. They're going to try and keep it in front of them, play that split safety stuff. If the Ravens start running the rock, it will naturally, and analytics truthers can argue with me until they're blue in the face, but if the Ravens are able to pound the rock, those young safeties are going to become conscious of it. They're going to be embarrassed by it, and you're going to be able to get the ball over their head. So I'm going to go Ravens are able to score 29 points in this game, and I think the Bills will be able to score, I want to say 20, and it's a 2-score game, but I'll try to remove my homer side and say that the Bills are able to, the Ravens want to finish and they've struggled to finish. They finished against the Patriots. Let's say that the Bills make a late push. Let's call it 29-26 Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to win this game. It's at home. It's raining. Bills are very hurt. 10 guys on the injury list. God forbid 1 or 2 more kind of have an in-game injury, which happens every game, so it will happen. I don't know, man. I don't think they have the guns right this second. And I really love this Bills team. I really love Josh Allen. I really love a lot of things they do, but I think Lamar is playing on a different level. And what does Lamar need to do in this game, I guess, to get to that 29, 30-point, 35-point threshold? Take care of the football, and I think you can hurt this defense. The one doomsday is that Von Miller and the front do wreck you and do force fumbles and do turn the ball over. It's just a lot easier said than done against for all we're going to talk about the left tackle, the Ravens have 4 linemen that they are happy to have. They're happy they have Moses. They're happy they have Zeitler. They're happy they have Linderbaum. They're happy they have Powers. And they're probably relatively happy with the play of those 4. You do have Ricard. You do have Oliver. You do have Andrews. You do have likely guys that can go be a bigger body at least and help out. And the Bills don't like to blitz. So if you have 6 in protection, 7 in protection, and then Lamar Jackson, who can still outrun Von Miller and can still run anyone else on the freaking football field, can go make plays on anyone in space. I think the Ravens win this game, man. I think they're healthier. I think that they're more confident. I think they're at home. I think they're in a good spot. And I think this defense is vastly being overly analyzed for what they truly are going to be with any sort of health. And I think they're in a decent spot health-wise. Michael Pierce out, Justin Houston out. I liked what I saw from Copeland. He's, been on and off with the Ravens, has a little bit of an idea of how to go play. I like what I've seen from OA at times, but Matabike has been awesome. Broderick Washington has been awesome. Brent Urban's probably going to get back into this game a little bit. And again, I talked about in the review, hey, if the Bills get into the red zone, you got to get a stop, at least one. If the Ravens don't get this will be my if then if the Ravens lose. If the Ravens don't get a stop in the red zone, then they won't win the game. They have to have at least one stop. That's my big statement. So, again, I'm going Ravens 29, Bills 26. That is 51 minutes for me. We'll end it on Ray Lewis 52. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. Go give us a 5-star review in Spotify or in the Apple podcasts. Please give us a 5-star review. Please feel free to write a review. We'll have a contest coming up soon. Like I said, first 20 minutes are more about Baltimore, but there's a little preview of this episode. Hope everyone has a great Sunday. Hope we see a Ravens dub and are talking about the Ravens 3-1 hosting the Bengals next week. So 2-2 is not a horrible place either, but would definitely prefer to be 3-1 there and feel like you have some sort of confidence heading into your first back-to-back home game situation ultimately. So thank you so much, guys. You can find me at Ravens for Dummies, Jake Luke at Jake Luke. You can find the show at Podcast Beatdown, BaltimoreBeatdown.com. That's all of our fine work. Here's 52 minutes. That is Ray Lewis. See ya.